Welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bello, and today I've got my friends Adam and Amanda New on the show. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
The news, right? It's like
the news. That's right. Adam and Amanda New.
That's so cool. Every time I meet someone with a cool last name, I'm just like, is that real? Or did you like change that? Or how was that on your Letterman jacket in high school?
Yeah. It's really interesting. Like whenever you try to go and check into a hotel or anything where you're basically a new customer, they think that somebody set up like a piece of sample data or something like that, or you're like a test customer. So they're just like
trial run. Yeah.
Like, can I see your ID?
Yeah, well, it's great to have you on the show. We actually met over at the Real Estate Carrot Camp event back in May. I think it was May, right? May 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, we're coming up almost on a year since we last met. And of course, you already shared what you were working on at that time, how you've grown your business. I think we were laughing about a flip that you did or a renovation where you just changed the light bulb or something. I can't remember. We were talking outside the hotel, but how have things looked? I'll let you two introduce yourselves, like however you see fit.
Yeah. You want to give this one a shot?
Yeah. So Adam and Amanda. So by background, we have traditionally had corporate jobs. So we both used to be in the credit card processing industry for a large bank here in the area. We did sales for a number of years, ended up getting promoted into different facets of the organization where he was managing a sales team. I was managing the relationship that the bank had with the credit card processing company we outsourced everything to. So we did that for a number of years, which was great. Good money, moved up the corporate ladder. And then we had our first daughter in 2019. First and only, I should say. Good clarification.
That I'm aware of.
Yes. Had our daughter, and we kind of had known this going into it, but it really shed some light on the fact that what we were doing was not really sustainable based on the type of life we were trying to design. So we wanted to be present with our daughter. We wanted to be there for everything. One had the flexibility to send her to our neighbor's house, which is where she's at right now, and she can go play with her friends. Or if we want to pull her out, we want to go take a trip, or we want to go do something, it's no big deal. And our jobs were making us travel pretty extensively. Adam at that point had the entire state of Virginia as his territory, and I had the mid-Atlantic. So, overnights 2 to 3 times a week, I was in a different state. So this was just not sustainable at all. So Adam, at the very beginning of COVID, got laid off. Womp womp. But honestly, when we look back on 2020, that was one of the best things that could have ever happened to us, because it made us really focus in on, okay, this is something we always had talked about, but now we actually have to put our money where our mouth is. And Adam spent that time, he ended up getting a job like a month later, so it was all good. But he really spent that time to figure out, okay, what type of business did we want to stand up outside of our corporate jobs so that way we could live the life that we were trying to design. So through all of that, we figured out what we wanted to do, got a lot of mentorship along the way, which we can talk about if we need to throughout the podcast. But what that resulted in is, so that all happened March of 2020. By September of 2020, we both had quit our W-2 jobs. In 2021, we fully replaced our W-2 income by July. So 12 months worth of income in 7 months is a great place to be.
I didn't complain.
No complaints here. We ended up generating over $500,000 worth of revenue and ended up acquiring 7 rental properties on the back half of the year. So very different life that we've got now than just we did 18 short months ago.
Yeah.
It's been kind of crazy. But for us, this is now the path we've always wanted to be on. So we're just really excited to be with you, talk about it. Yeah. We're not a big deal, but it has just been a very different 18 months, and we love talking to people about why that was the case. So
yeah, that's really cool. Cause I think last we talked, obviously we all shared, we did our give and our ask, and we showed kind of where we were. And so I remember seeing your numbers up on the board for Q1, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty solid already on Q1. So it is kind of cool to hear how the remainder of the year went and the acquiring rental properties and everything. So a better lifestyle for sure right now than you were living just 18 short months ago.
Yes, very much so. Very much so.
And I think we got this unique perspective in it. When we had our daughter, both of the companies we worked for had really long leave policies. in how many months did you get?
I had 4.
And I got 3. So, and you were completely cut off. So no one was calling us, no one was texting us. The entire sales teams we worked for, they were on their own. They were being managed by others and everything. But it really gave us a perspective in a bubble to close ourselves off in and think creatively without having to do anything corporate wise. And when I say cut off, I mean completely cut off. Like they'd get in trouble with HR if they so much as texted us and said, "How are you doing?" Yeah. So as if though we no longer worked for the company. Your creative mind, when you take that burden off of you, can really go crazy in a good way. And that's something we really took advantage of. So we had that experience, and you can't undo that. You've had a taste of it. You can't undo it. And then getting laid off again, you're like, oh, I know exactly what to do now. Right. And then was able to use that for productive purposes.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Just when you can have that clarity of thought. I mean, the fact that you had that length of paid leave, I know in the US culture, that's pretty much unheard of. And
absolutely,
usually it's someone from like France who's like, oh, we had a whole year off of like paid leave or whatever.
Yeah.
Like when I've met people from traveling and they just are like in shock that people are having children and going back to work two weeks later, that's the culture that we tend to live in. So I love that you have that clarity and the time to really think, because I mean, a lot of people have gotten laid off or fired. I got fired from a job once and I'm like, well, you don't get any paid leave. You don't get paid for 3 months to like sit around and think. You're kind of like in scarcity mode sometimes. So the creative part that you speak of is very difficult for many people to get to experience, because usually if they're not working, they're not getting paid type thing. Right. So do you think that was pretty instrumental in just giving you that taste of how life could be, not having to deal with the phone calls and sales calls and meetings?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was in like really weird ways that it would present itself. I remember, and like kind of think of like the Hurricane Disney World thing. So like we have friends that work down in Disney World down in Florida, right? Great people. And we love communicating with them. Mm-hmm. They were like, hey, a hurricane just rolled through here. It was a Cat 1, so it didn't ruin anything, but like the place has been emptied out. People canceled their vacation to Disney World when they find out a hurricane's coming into town, right? So the place was completely empty. The little Star Wars land had just opened up. That was something that one day we said we should go see. And then they were like calling us like, hey, you should come down here tomorrow. This is not easy for somebody with a newborn baby to do, go from Virginia to Florida just like that. But all of a sudden we realized we don't have jobs. We don't have anybody to respond to. Like we could just
do it.
Take a $95 flight, direct flight down to Orlando, because all of those flights were empty. Like, so like it just was creating this perfect, they were going to give us free tickets. Like, so like the only thing we realized was it's just not smart to put a baby in 96-degree weather. So that's why we didn't go down there. But like, it really started to open our eyes in like unusual ways of like, if you were your own boss, you could do genuinely whatever you wanted to do. And it's like tiny little things like that don't really seem like a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but really opened your eyes as to what other things you could do. If I can do this, I could pretty much do anything.
Yep.
Yeah. I noticed that for myself as well. Cause when you're so used to working all the time and just never, having set vacation days, I mean, for years I had 10 days a year, right? I'm sure, I mean, maybe in sales, you might have like a little more flexibility or get to work remote a few times, but you're on calls, you got to jump on a call. Even if you're on vacation, you're not really fully unplugged versus the ability to just be like, hey, instead of having to stack up vacations, like if you got a Friday off or, a company holiday, you got to take Monday off so you can stretch your days and really go somewhere fun. That gets very tiring after some time versus being able to say, hey, I'm going to go to Florida tomorrow just because I feel like it, and have the ability to truly do that, like not just say it, not just think about it, but to actually do it if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we started approaching things based on the merits of doing them, not like whether or not it was okay with somebody else. And that is a truly freeing thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So obviously you guys had a great, first, I guess, when did you get into the business? You said 2020 is when you kind of dove in. 2021 was your first full year, both doing it. Yeah. So how does your life look now? Because obviously your business is doing well. You guys are staying busy. You have some sort of balance, I would assume, between personal life, fun, going on dinner dates and stuff like that. I know we kind of talked about that, how it's interesting doing business with your, your significant other or spouse. So how do you guys
Absolutely.
balance it all? And how do you draw the line at a certain time? Do you work on Saturdays or take Sundays off? Is there any kind of rules that you've created around your business?
Not, no, but here's why. Let me put some caveats on this because I don't think that it's sustainable. So when we were in the credit card processing industry, we were constantly working together already.
Yeah.
So we have a very organic, like we talk about it, we don't talk about it. Like it might be over dinner and then we're done with it. Like, so
Mhm.
we were always communicating after hours, whenever about in our prior life. So that
Okay.
has manifested in this life too.
Yeah.
But I think the beauty of it is that maybe there's someone that wants us to check out their house and they work 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, and the only time they have available Saturday. Okay, I'm going to choose then to do that.
Right.
It's not a have to. I'm choosing to because I recognize there's an opportunity to make some money. But then the flip side of that coin is yesterday it snowed here in Virginia. And if you don't know, if there's like an inch of snow on the ground, we all shut down and we all like scream that we're all going to die. I didn't do a whole lot.
Yeah.
Like I made one phone call, checked in on one thing and like mapped out the week. And that was kind of it.
Okay.
So like in exchange for that Saturday that maybe we worked a couple of weeks ago, I didn't do much of anything yesterday. So that's where the
Right.
balance starts coming in that we're not working 90 hours a week. Like
Yeah.
that was another big thing. Like we've already done that life. It's terrible.
Yeah.
So we don't do that. And if we feel like we are getting too busy, like that's an indicator to us, we need to hire somebody or we need to outsource some of these things. So that way we never get to that point. That's not a negotiable way to live.
Yeah.
So
Right. Sustainable, I think, is the word you use. It's not sustainable. I mean, maybe at first, you're building things, you got to hustle and
Yeah,
grind
sure.
and put in a little extra effort up front. But like you mentioned, that's a really good point, is it's an indicator to you if it ends up being too burdensome or taking too many hours. Hey, we
Yeah.
might need to delegate something here or automate, or is there someone we can hire so that we don't have to start creeping into the 10-hour days, 90-hour work weeks like we used to do?
right.
Yeah. And I think coming from a corporate sales background and managing teams and having people work for you, it really gives you a good sense of time and the
Yeah.
value of time and the value of your time versus someone else's time. Like it really puts that in perspective for you so that you can sit down and go, okay, from the start, I'm going to invest as little man hours into this operation as possible. Or if I am, I'm going to delegate something like that.
Right. So it sounds like there was some helpful overlap from your previous life, your experience. And I saw that for myself too. A lot of the corporate things I learned in the Excel pivot tables and macros and all that, like I use that now to this day for my own things. And you can
Yeah.
scale a lot more quickly without having to, there's no red tape. You don't have to get approval from your manager or the director or anything like that. You see something you want to do, you do it. And you kind of, I know I wrote this down here, just in case versus just in time learning. I know there's a lot of that goes on. So
Sure.
if you'd like to jump into that a little bit, I'd love to hear, how have you balanced learning and masterminds and connecting versus, hey, are we learning for the sake of learning, or do we actually need to know this stuff? Like what's the
Yeah.
process there?
So, and this is something that is probably not unique to real estate or real estate investing, but it's something that we get exposed to on a regular basis.
Mhm.
When you're brand new, you have no idea what you're doing. And that makes sense, right? You're new to the industry. And so you say, okay, I'm going to get on YouTube, or I'm going to start listening to Chris Bellows' podcast, or whatever is your original source of education, right? So whatever it is that's motivating you. And, you think even within something like your podcast, you may have us on one day, you may have a week later, you may have somebody that's in the cannabis industry, you may have somebody that's in crypto 2 weeks after that. So like, if you even followed one source of education, you're all over the place. Now again, there's something you can learn from all those people, right? So that's not a negative, right? That's a fantastic thing, because each one of those people brings a unique perspective to doing business and to what motivates them as an individual. But if you were to use that as your source of education, you would sit there and go, okay, I need to be in real estate investing because it sounds like Adam and Amanda are doing well in that. And I want to do well too.
Mm-hmm.
And then the very next podcast, you'd see somebody that's in the cannabis space and you'd be like, I know what I need to do now. I got to open up a cannabis store. So like, but that doesn't make practical sense in following a passion or a pursuit of yours. And so what we tend to see a lot of is someone will say, I listened to so-and-so on YouTube. And so this is how I'm going to pursue real estate. I'm going to go straight into multifamily. Okay. That's one way to do it. It's been done before. It's probably not the most common way of doing it. And there's nothing that says you can't. But then the very next week, you'll follow on somebody that follows another YouTube podcast. And it's like, okay, this is about subject to. So then they get really heavy on trying to figure out how to wrap their mind around that concept. And then they figure out that they need to be doing mail as a form of marketing versus digital on Facebook or digital on Google. And so they just keep going from thing to thing to thing. Another way, I guess you could put it, is shiny object syndrome. And you just keep going from thing to thing to thing. And you're just learning everything just in case this comes across your desk at some point or another. But the reality is, as a real estate investor, you just need to start off by identifying where you want to invest, start reaching out to people in that market, or start doing marketing in that market, and then learn from there as you go along. So I'll see people doing things like trying to build what's called a cash buyers list before they've ever put a deal under contract. And I'm like, you're spending hundreds of hours building a list that you don't need, but is actually super easy to do once you have a contract. So this concept of just in case versus just in time. So if you were to follow the natural order of what you need to learn, you're only really spending your time and energy on the next step versus something that's 20 steps down the road. Why would I need to know right now how to have a wholesaling business that is able to do 100 deals a month? I don't need to. I don't have the staff for it. I don't need the managerial skills for it. Like, I just don't, it's not necessary right now. Right.
Right.
In kind, I would not ask you to put on a Joe Rogan level production because that requires 20 people. Right. It makes hundreds of millions of dollars. Right. So but I wouldn't say you need to be able to know this to do this right now to start a podcast.
Right.
It's all relative. But we're noticing that a lot of folks tend to get really bogged down in learning everything versus learning just what they need to do in order to be able to complete step one.
Yeah. Very, very good advice. Was there anything you wanted to add to that, Amanda?
No, I think, and we can speak about this with a good amount of confidence because ask us how we know. We spent years before we actually took the plunge learning about stuff, learning about real estate, watching YouTube, whatever. And that was actually what drove us to go find a mentor, because we were like, there's way too many options. And I don't know what makes sense for us based on our life and our circumstances and our budget and our time and whatever. So we had to totally pivot away from years, because you can learn about all the real estate in the world, but until you take action or until you know what the next step is, you just stop what you're doing. You just are paralyzed because you're like, I don't even know what the next move is, because it could be 40 different next moves when really it actually is only one, once you cut out the noise and cut out that's not applicable to me because of my budget. That's not applicable to me because of my time. That's not applicable to me because I don't have $100 million business. Yeah. So once you really narrow it down and you have someone in your life that can help you see through all of that and say, oh yeah, that's great, but what about you right now? Then all of a sudden it gets really specific, targeted, and then you actually get to absorb it and actually execute, which is where you learn far more than you would ever learn on YouTube.
Yeah. And it was really interesting when we were at Carrot Camp together. One of the things that they mentioned was that Keith Sant had been to every single Carrot Camp. And when they first said that, I was like, that's insane. Why would anyone
why would he do that? Yeah.
Why would 2 times a year you come out to Roseburg, Oregon to talk to the same company with the same, rotating
about the same
10 or 12 people about the same topic every time? By the time we left, though, we were like, this guy's a genius. That's why he is who he is because every 6 months, he's around 12 to 15 new people that are at different sizes in their business, doing random different things. And so if he happens to be ruminating on a problem, every 6 months, he has an opportunity to present itself to a new group of people who are like, oh, that's how I fixed that.
Yeah.
And you're just like, wait, that's it. Like, it's amazing how when you get in these rooms sometimes, it's just, you just say it out loud like it's this big, serious problem that's really weighing you down. And someone's like, oh, that's it.
I already figured that out. Yeah.
That's your only problem. Well, we can fix that in the next 10 minutes. Let me write it out for you.
Yeah.
Like, so
absolutely. And for everyone listening, the kind of the story on that too is there were 2 back-to-back carrot camps, right? Like our group came for 2 or 3 days and then we were leaving, and then another group had flown in the day that we were all kind of taking off. So I had a little bit of overlap. I think I got to meet 1 or 2 people before I took off the next morning.
Sure.
And then they went to go start day 1 of the second camp, and Keith was going to that one too.
Yeah.
And so literally he could meet people and then stack the information from that camp to the next one, and then do that two times a year or however frequently. I think at this point he's already been to 6 or 7, and it's I don't know if the ticket price has changed much, but I believe it's been like $3,000 for the ticket fee. So that's just an investment in himself and in the relationships.
Yeah.
But it's almost like, even though it's the same format, you might go to the same restaurants for the dinner rotation. It's a small town in Oregon. It's still different people from across the nation, like you said, doing different things. And that's where the value is made, is just those connections and relationships. Because all of us still stay in touch. Yeah. And I was humbled when I shared the little Calendly, tip with Keith. And he's like, yeah, since that carrot camp, I've already closed 8 deals using that, people who booked with that link. And I'm like, whoa, that was one little thing. Imagine what else he picked up from the next one and the next one, and like the future ones that he goes to. So I know you talked about the mentor, and I think you had mentioned it before last May. Is that the same group that you've been a part of? Did you find a different mentor? Do you still work together? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. So for us, we recognized that probably if we needed to find someone who could tell us what to do, it probably wouldn't be in Richmond, Virginia, where we live, because then they'd be teaching,
competition
what to do. So Adam actually, through a YouTube rabbit hole, through a different podcast, and so on.
Through shiny objects,
self-professed.
Exactly.
Self-professed.
There we go.
He ended up finding a business partnership out of Mississippi that had a very similar philosophy to how we wanted to live our life and run our business, and we're our same age. So we ended up linking up with them, which was fantastic. I mean, because they walked us step by step and helped us cut through the noise and really get to, okay, then here's what you need to do next, and helped us really scale. That partnership has since dissolved, but we still talk to both of them all the time. I mean, at least once or twice a week, whether it's through text or through phone calls or through, Zoom calls with one of the partners. We talk to them all the time. Yeah. And what that really has helped is as we continue to scale, they can continue to be another set of eyes on our business to say, oh, wait for that. Watch out for that. Hey, have you thought about this? And we can present problems, and we can really start kind of digging in. And since they've seen our entire journey, they kind of know what we're trying to accomplish, and they can be basically, if we're the coaches on the football field, they're the ones up in the press box that can like kind of see everything big picture and say, hey, watch out for that guy. Hey, watch out for this, hey, watch out for that pothole, that sort of thing.
Awesome. And so do you have a good vision of where it is that you want to go? I mean, does your ideal business look like what you're doing now, or is there a bridge that you're trying to gap that you're trying to bridge?
So starting off, really all we needed to do was replace our corporate income. We quit way too early. and I mean that in hindsight, right? In hindsight. It worked out really well because the income was replaced very quickly. I can't guarantee those results for anyone else though. So like I'm hesitant to just go suggesting people quit their job after they sign their first or second contract.
Yeah.
They didn't even close. They were just signed.
Yeah, they were just
We're like, oh, that's good enough. That's fine.
Good.
Mic
We
drop.
quit.
We're out.
Yeah. So it was either it looks genius 18 months later. At the time, it was probably the dumbest thing we could have done. Our first goal is just stand up the business and then replace our W-2 income. If we can do that, then we know, okay, that's a good starting point. And you can decide, do I want to scale that side of my business even further and, double, triple income? We can do that. Do we want to start acquiring properties? And really the direction that we've headed in is acquire properties. So I don't really think we're looking to build a $5 million, $10 million revenue generating wholesale business. But reality is we're probably looking at a 7-figure wholesale business, just kind of barely touching that number, and then using it primarily as an acquisitions model within the city of Richmond, Virginia. So that's primarily what we're doing now. And so through the conversations that we've had standing up the business, we've met people And just as one of the natural things of assigning contracts is that you're asking for proof of funds to make sure this person can complete the transaction. So if you are buying from me right there and all you're doing is buying $100,000 house, but you show me a money market account with $4 million on it, after the transaction's over, I might just happen to ask you, so just out of curiosity, what are you doing with the rest of that money? And oftentimes they're like, nothing. It's just real estate's really expensive right now, or maybe I can only do 1 or 2 projects at the same time. I have more money than sense. And then so it just comes down to, okay, well, we've got a couple projects that we're interested in. Maybe we can show them to you and see if it's something that you might be willing to lend on. And from those conversations has invited us to be able to meet with private money lenders and all sorts of folks. And so that's what's fueled the acquisition side of our business. So we're able to continue to pay ourselves like a traditional wholesale business and still acquire properties at the same time. So we're having a good old time with it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's exciting. I mean, it sounds like it's kind of like it's checking the boxes, giving you the freedom and the flexibility that you want, the income that you want. Obviously, you've been able to replace and I'm sure even surpass the income that you were generating. Plus, especially if you think about it from that Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week in terms of how many hours were you working to achieve the income you did? Like you said, I think you said, Amanda, 90-hour work weeks, traveling out of town every other day versus now to generate more income working a fraction of the time, in your pajamas if you wanted to, essentially. Sure. That's like a totally different game. And so thank you for sharing all of that. I mean, I was very impressed with you too when we met and we just shared your stories. And it's just interesting because they say, never judge books by the cover. And you never knew, like, you kind of made judgments about certain people's businesses, or at least I did. I was just thinking like, oh, okay, I wonder how they're doing, or what is that person up to? And then they all flash the numbers and you're like, no way, like your business is doing that. Like, how did you figure it out? You only started, like you said, 18 short months ago. In hindsight's 2020. I love how you said that. Like, you maybe quit your jobs a little bit too soon, but hey, absolutely, now you look like geniuses because it worked out very well.
Absolutely.
But I think it's a combination too of just your experience, your lessons. So that's why results may vary, because you were both doing a great job and learning and doing your best at your previous roles. And all that experience stacks to then roll into the next thing, which is, focusing all your efforts into your real estate business.
That's right.
Yeah, pretty much.
So shiny object syndrome, have you kind of gotten a handle on that, and any secrets to not getting distracted by all the shiny objects?
Having a spouse partnership is incredibly helpful for that.
We'll keep each other on track.
Where are you going with this, man?
Well, I'm distracted by her constantly. No, trying to find the right way to put this. I think a common thing that I see especially I see men running into all the time, is that they get this idea in their head, their hunter-gatherer brain of theirs, that they're just going to go off into some real estate conference by themselves, leave their spouse at home, and they're going to learn what they need to learn
and make it happen.
But practically what that looks like to their spouse is they go to a 2 or 3 day event, they get super excited about something, and they come home all manic. And they say, hey, hon, I know we're doing long-term rentals, but now we're doing Airbnb. We're going to make a killing. And so you look like a crazy person to your spouse. And it does look like shiny object syndrome. And it might actually be the next right move for you, but you look crazy, right? That's how it practically gets interpreted by your spouse. Mm-hmm. Having your spouse at an event really gives an idea. So I always encourage people, if you're ever going to go to a conference, you need to bring your spouse with you so that the speaker can work on them just as much as they're working on you. And so it's really kind of
also manic.
Well, no, that it's just that you all have all the information. It's not just one of you with all the information and the other person sitting there having none of the information. And without any information, you're not going to be able to make an informed decision. So true. It's kind of hard to distinguish between the two if you're trying to do it by yourself. So in our case, there were a couple properties that we originally thought of that were going to be long-term rentals that we're going to be making to short-term rentals. Because we're both sitting in a short-term rental seminar thing, we were both able to interpret the information and go, I think this is an appropriate fit, have a discussion about whether that's something that we should do, the pros and cons of it all, and move forward. Otherwise, what you are, you're just this person that goes to a thing and all of a sudden just makes a decision, and the rest of the world around you can't
Has no
really
idea.
handle that. You just even if you're doing the right thing, it still comes across as that.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you just have people that will try things for 2 days at a time and then move into something else. And then that's just the real shiny object syndrome of just, I don't really know what I want to do. Therefore, I'm easily influenced by just about anything that comes along.
Yes.
Right.
I think that's, so the other facet, and we, I said this to somebody, I don't remember when, it was a couple of months ago, but I have found any time that shiny object syndrome gets into our business, into our life, it's always in a valley. When you're crushing it, there is no shiny object syndrome because you're like, I'm crushing it. I don't need you. Like, I don't need that product. I don't need that model.
This is working. Yeah.
This is working. It's always when you don't feel like stuff is working. That's when all of a sudden you're like, well, maybe we should be virtually wholesaling. Maybe we should be doing crypto.
Yeah.
Maybe we should be
Yeah.
licensed realtors. And so what helps
True.
protect you is saying, what is the vision? We've been offered lots of opportunities to lots of different things that would make us a lot of money. That's great. Does that line up with the vision of creating wealth with our family through Richmond-based rental properties? No, then that's not what we need to do. It might be it would be a detour that could temporarily provide us more income, but does not actually get us towards the goal. It just looks like it does because it's more money.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's where you have to protect your brain and protect your business by having that clear-cut vision. So that way, you know what is on the path and what is off the path, and you don't get distracted. But that can't be just like oh yeah, like we talked about it, we want rentals. Oh, we talked about it, like we want Airbnbs. Like it has to be a deeply rooted, this is the core, everything else swirls around it. So that way you don't get swayed.
Yeah.
But you will always, the shiny object syndrome always happens in a valley. It never happens at the top.
Yeah. And people will like start conversations with us. Well, you guys should really get into crypto. And I'm like,
Why?
I don't think I'm in a really good rate of return as it is right now. And it's already regularly coming in. So like, again, if I had nothing else going on and I was just working my W-2 job and thinking to myself, hey, I really ought to do something else, then yeah, I would probably be all ears about, any random thing. But it's really interesting to watch people try. And I think people mean well when they do this, watch people try to fix you even when you're doing well.
Right. Or I always like to say to take advice from people you trade places with. So even the person who bought a deal from you, when you saw the $4 million bank account balance, you might want to ask them a couple of questions if they're a little further along than the person who's giving you advice and they're trying to buy their first deal and their proof of funds is like insufficient funds, right? You're like, why would I listen to you about crypto advice when, you don't have the funds that I'm looking for?
Well, and here's what also happens. Okay, so I can give a real world example. There's someone we know that is a real estate investor. Very, very successful real estate investor, has been doing it longer than we have, is phenomenal at it. She crushes it. But she's now into crypto. There's nothing wrong with crypto, but ask me how her wholesaling business is doing right now. She didn't close a deal
for eye off the prize. Yeah.
She hasn't closed a deal in 60, 90 days, but now she's all about crypto.
Yeah.
But like you're missing the point. Like you've now, because you're focused on this other thing, you've lost all your revenue.
Exactly.
In lieu, you just think you're just learning something, or like, hey, this is something cool I can do on the side, and it's now dominating all her time. She's totally taking her eye off the prize, and now she's got to start over. So it's not just, oh, let me just pick up where I left off.
Mm-hmm.
You now have to start all over again and start back from the beginning, because now you're rusty, and now you have to. Now it's going to take less time for you to get back up and running, but like, you have to start over.
Yeah. I saw, speaking of Carrot, that's where we met, the Carrot event, for anyone who doesn't know, carrot.com, but the CEO, Trevor Mock, I saw him make a post, and I'm trying to see if I can pull it up real quick, because I posted it and I tagged him and I have it saved in my like Instagram archive. But he was talking about how going wide versus deep is a trap in doing almost anything great. If you want to scale marketing, if you want amazing relationships, if you want to become a great painter, you have to go very deep on a few things instead of dabbling in 10 things. And then what was really powerful for me, I think he had the money too, because he said he focused on multiple streams of income early in his career. His first 8 years as an entrepreneur with 5 businesses, he made a total of $750,000 or so in revenue. And then in the last 5 years, focused on one business, he made 60x that. And he's got, obviously 8-figure software business doing well, growing more and more, paying customers. And that is the power of focusing on less, right? Less, but better, because less is more. A lot of people think more is more things is more money, but no, you're taking your eye off of your main moneymaker. And like that perfect example that you mentioned, Amanda, focusing all in on crypto, the wholesaling investment business has dried up a little bit for that one investor that
Yeah. And it's amazing, like, because I think oftentimes people will get started saying like, what I want is a business that works roughly X hours a week, that makes roughly X, Y number of dollars a year, and, is a Z level of stress. And then they'll get that. And then they'll be like, let's add on to that. And I think Gary Vee is probably the best example of somebody that's like, if you're happy where you are, be happy where you are. Yeah. And that's just really great content to consistently remind yourself of. Now, he's also all about hard work and other things too, but like, you don't necessarily have to do 5 things at a time, because you will just suck all the joy out of your life and you just become a 5-headed monster.
Right. Very good advice. I think a lot of times that's a perfect example. You get to where you're trying to go, and then there's another mountain that you want to climb, or you try to add something else. And that's what I struggle with too. I don't know if you ever feel this way of just sitting still for too long. After I watch 3 episodes of Netflix in a row and it asks if I'm still watching, I'm like, man, I am still watching. Like, why am I still watching? I should be doing something else, even though I've created the time and space in my life to afford to be able to do this. But I still feel like maybe I'm leaving potential on the table. Maybe some of those feelings come up for people who then start to add on other businesses, other ideas, which then distract them. So, I mean, again, less is more. Just if you're really crushing it with that one business model and it's checking all the boxes for you, just understanding that that's okay. Like you can stay there. You don't have to scale. I love that you don't have you didn't mention anything like you want to get to the $5 million a year mark or be crazy and hustle yourself to death. You know your numbers, you know where you want to be, the lifestyle you want to live, and you're reminding yourself that that's okay.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure we overpay our contractor, but he takes care of everything for our remodel. The extent of our decision-making is, would you like this granite versus that granite? What shade of doorknob do you want? Like that's it. Like everything else gets taken care of. I'm sure there are people that do cheaper rehabs, but guess what? We don't have stress about rehabs. So like, what's your time and what's your time worth to you? What's your energy and what's your stress worth to you? As we're getting into the short-term rental business, one of my mother's an incredibly effective property manager. She's joining our team and going to help us with the short-term rentals. I've made it very clear, I probably don't want to know about all of the individual details about this person damaged that or rubbed pizza on the walls or did whatever, all these horror stories that I see in these.
Just pizza.
But but you hear, but like if you join an Airbnb Facebook group, I mean, it is not
stories.
Wow, it will scare you to death. But like that stuff where I'm like, I can assure you, with my level of anxiety, I don't need to be aware of any of that.
Right.
As long as it's being handled.
Exactly.
Effectively, like I don't need to be aware of it.
And you can have rules in place. I know this is something else that I picked up just from delegating and outsourcing. Maybe if it's less than a certain dollar value, like $100 or less, I don't need to hear about it. Just fix it, take care of it, use the business card.
Sure.
If it's 100 to 400, like, maybe you look at it or approve it via email. Sure. And obviously if it's way more expensive than that, like a big ticket item, it's almost like a corporate organization. Like anything that was a $25,000 and up purchase had to get multiple levels of approval type thing. Right. But like, they don't care if you need something and you expedite like Sharpies tomorrow, like, does it matter if you paid $50 for shipping for a $4 item? Like probably not, because it's below that threshold. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, good stuff. What's been something else that perhaps you've learned that maybe you didn't expect to, something that kind of popped up that you're like, oh my gosh, this is so obvious now, but at the time we had no idea. Is there anything that comes to mind?
I think raising money was something that I thought was going to be far more difficult than it was. And just by being a player in our local market and creating a reputation, and if you want to call it a brand, you can call it a brand. Creating that reputation locally, you don't have to be a large fish in a small pond to attract people or money. I thought this would be something that would take us years to figure out. And really it was a matter of months before people were like, I want to invest in whatever it is that you're doing.
That's awesome. And I mean, that goes towards finding the deal, right? If you're able to not easily, but like repeatedly find the deals and you know how to run your numbers. Yeah. Same thing with the cash buyer list. You don't need the cash buyer list first, because if you find the deals, you can find the buyers. Exactly. So that's how you're able to find the money as well. And Amanda, were you going to say something there too? Sorry. I cut you off.
No, you're fine. No, it actually, I was just, so you're going to see this. So just throwing it out there. We do have a TikTok channel. Please feel free to follow us. Our 80 members are very strong and we're just
awesome. It's growing.
Yeah. We're growing. But this is actually something I'm going to talk about was, so I think it's actually bad mindset where we're like, oh my God, who would want to lend to us? Like, we're brand new. We don't know what we're doing. Like we do good business, but we're not like this expert. We can't be an expert in 18 months. Like that's not a reality.
It's like your limiting belief that you have.
Right. Well, what I actually started to realize, and I think the mindset shift we had to have with some of this is it's not about who would want to lend to us. We've got, as long as the numbers make sense and we've got a smoking hot deal, who wouldn't want to lend on that? Yeah, like exactly. Who wouldn't want to give us money and have something that they can hold on to? It's actually a tactile thing that they're investing in. It's not, the stock market that can change on a whim. It's not an idea. It's actually tactile. You can actually touch it. And if we screw up, you can foreclose on us. And then you get a house. Yeah. Like, who wouldn't want to lend on that? Yeah. There's a free house on the table here. Like, and not that they want us to foreclose, but like.
Yeah, there was a time where I was realizing my lender's going to make us, my primary lenders is going to make a 6-figure income off of me in 2022. And then also, so they're happy. If I got hit by a bus tomorrow, it'd be the best thing that ever happened to their portfolio. Like, right. But if you'd asked me a year ago, I'd been like, man, no one would find value in lending us money.
Right.
So now I'm really like, I don't know who's benefiting more. Like
he could live off the interest he's making off of our rehabs. And that's if we kept cycling the money in and out, working on stuff, refining out, working on stuff, refining out, he could live off of just the interest we're providing him. Now, don't get me wrong. We are still making a gob of money too. So like, oh, boo hoo. Like, win-win, but this is a huge win-win. So like, why wouldn't he want to do that? Why wouldn't anyone want to do that? Yeah. So I think, as long as one, you're doing good business. Yeah. 2, people know you're doing good business. You're not just some random person that shows up at a meeting and is like, hey, I need money.
Yeah. Like, and also we show up in a Toyota, not a Lamborghini. I think that's also, there needs to be a certain amount of practicality to the way that you do business.
Right. I remember that you guys had a red tool, right? You had the minivan or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, it's so
we were all piling into the minivan.
Sweet.
That's right. It was practical.
So practical. So now we've got an SUV. So we're big time now. Nice. But yeah, like I think that, when you think about like some of the biggest changes, figuring out that piece and having a bad mindset become a correct mindset has generated, if you look at just once we refi out of all of our 7 properties and you look at the equity we have in those 7 properties, we created $400,000 in equity.
Just from the equity.
In 5 months.
That's amazing.
Like, what the heck? Like, why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't anybody do that? Like, this is just, right. But that was a $400,000 mentality shift that had to shift. But like, look at now what gets to happen when you work on that type of mindset.
Yeah. And you can't spend it right now. Obviously it's equity in a property, right. But like at the end of the day, you need to add that to your net worth total. You need to add that to what value did we create in 2021. So there is there is the financial side of it where you're like, after it was all said and done, we grossed roughly over $500,000 in assignment fees. By no means does that make us the largest wholesalers in the city, much less.
And that's not even what you're going for, like you said.
Exactly, yeah. No. But when, as we said, if one of our goals was to one day start building up a rental portfolio, and we accidentally Like we
7.
accidentally did 7 in 6 months, which again, there are people that do it way faster. But again, I think,
but I mean, there's a lot of people who haven't done a single deal, and they heard about this 5 years ago on a podcast, right?
But it's also the amount of work they had to do and the size of the team that they had to do to do it at the same time. So like,
Right.
I'm sure you can find someone that's done 10 times as many by themselves in the same amount of time. But I'm like, I bet you they work really hard.
Yeah. And anyway, like there's so many people out there. It's almost like the Roger Bannister thing, you know, the 4-minute mile. Just the fact that someone has done something in a different way. Like I just met up with someone who was in town the other day, and they're like, I still can't believe you're closing deals as a real estate agent virtually. And I'm like, I can't either. I thought my income was going to dry up when we moved to Denver, and I proved to myself that it's possible. But now others can see, hey, this is actually a viable thing that is real and can happen. But it's always you versus you. Cause I mean, I don't want to compare myself to someone else, because I do this sometimes. I look at someone's production, I'm like, man, they're crushing it. Wow, they just made my whole last year's salary in 1 month. And I kind of like kill myself over it. But then I'm like, why am I doing this? Because I see them post on Facebook about sleepless nights and working all day, all the time and grinding. And I'm like, I don't have any of that. I'm like hiking in the mountains. I can go snowboarding tomorrow. And maybe I make a fraction of the income, but my life is a lot more pleasant and enjoyable than that person's life, regardless of the income. So it's like, you can't compare because we all have different goals. If we're just looking at someone else's finances, but they're working 90-hour weeks, that breaks the rules that you two have set for yourself in this business, right?
Sure.
Absolutely.
It's still an incredible story nonetheless.
Well, and I think that one of the things that people need to remember is that, you know, so the Chris Bello in my life is my go-to subject matter expert for time and efficiency, right?
Right.
Is my human 4-hour work week. So if I have a problem related to time and efficiency, I'm going to come to you.
Exactly.
If I was going to scale a wholesaling business, I'd find someone with a $5 million or $10 million wholesaling business, right?
Right.
So like that is like everyone has their unique skill set, everyone has their strengths, and everyone has their purpose on this earth. So like if whatever the specific issue is that you're trying to work with, find that person.
Find the expert.
It will not always be the same person. So what I call you for won't be what I call Keith for, wouldn't be what I call Trevor for, wouldn't be what I call someone locally in the Richmond area for. And
100%.
And sometimes it's just a character reference, right? So you're going to be reaching out to all sorts of people. Hey, should I do business with this person? Do you trust this person? You know, like it'll amaze you how many people that you'll come into contact with. And as long as you're doing good business, and as long as you're telling people that you're doing, or people can see that you're doing good business, it'll be amazing how many people will come out of the woodwork to help you in the process.
Absolutely. And I mean, a referral is so powerful, even in the real estate retail game. That is worth, 5, I don't know what the numbers are, like 10 cold internet leads versus 1 referral. I take the referral every day of the week because
all day
there's that lent trust. I don't have to compare what I do versus someone else and cut my commission and do all these things that you may have some random person who doesn't know, like, or trust you. Right. So it kind of goes back to that. If you do good business, if you do what you say you're going to do, and you are a person of your word and have integrity, that's going to grow far more quickly than you could possibly scale a marketing campaign or something like that.
Yep. You cannot put a price tag on doing good business.
Yeah, you can't. And
cannot put a price tag on it.
While you're here sitting talking to me, there may be someone meeting for lunch right now asking that question, hey, should I lend my money to them on a deal? Have you done business with them? Oh yeah, I've done 5 deals with them, and I lend to them frequently. Yeah. There you go. You're going to have another email sitting in your inbox after this, so that's the power of just doing the right thing consistently over a long enough period of time. And now you're the perceived experts, right? I know you said a year ago, you're like, who are we? And now here you are. A lot of people look up to you and what you've accomplished. And I wouldn't be surprised if some people send you a DM after this, like asking if you have any YouTube videos or anything that they can watch to learn more about how you did it.
Yeah. And that's kind of the purpose of setting up our TikTok. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've gone in that direction, is that a lot of it just boils down to, we want to start sharing tiny little tips here and there, just what we're doing on a regular basis throughout the week. Just this is a project we're working on right now. Yeah. As transparent and as authentic as we can be in that process. This is how we are doing this project. This is how pretty it was when it started, and this has got a little bit prettier after about 50 grand worth of work done to it.
Oh my, yeah.
So, yeah.
And yeah, because I mean, like I said, we're not the experts, but there is stuff that we've learned, and there's stuff that we may not recognize, especially as I document, I start realizing like there's stuff that we're doing almost intrinsically, whether it's because of our past life experiences, job experiences, education levels, whatever, that we just do that we don't even realize is something worth noting.
Yeah.
But it is to somebody else.
Absolutely.
So document what you can, throw out there. Hey, this is why we're doing it this way. Hey, here's why I make this phone call this way. Here's why we do it this way. So that way someone else, it maybe not be intrinsic to them because of their life experiences and their education levels and their past, jobs and things that they've done. So document as much as you can, share what you can. And then if it helps somebody, great. If it doesn't, well, then it's just really funny when our daughter's 18 and she can see her parents running around looking at beat up houses in the middle of nowhere. So, we're either way, it's a win.
Yeah. And I'm having, this is actually something that we're having to encourage ourselves with right now, is that like imposter syndrome is a very real thing.
Yeah.
It is tough for us to think who would care, number one, but also when you recognize that there are people accomplishing far greater things in a far shorter amount of time, but also having to recognize that someone somewhere is going, man, I just wish I could do what they did. If I could get there, that would be living.
Yeah. I remember sharing a clip that I saw as like a YouTube video or like a 30-second clip on Instagram where it's almost just showing how we always compare to others no matter what. It's just, especially with social media, it makes it worse. But there's like a guy in a helicopter, and then you can see a person in a BMW looking at the helicopter like, man, I wish I had a helicopter. Yeah. And then there's a person in like a crappy beat up car looking at the BMW. He kind of zooms in on the next person who's looking at that person, and that person has like a cracked windshield and like duct tape car, and they're like, gosh, I wish I had a BMW. And then it goes to show a pedestrian who wishes they had a car, or I think there was a bike and then a pedestrian and then a person in a wheelchair, which like really hit home, where it's like, man, that person just wishes they could freaking walk. And we're all here wanting the BMW, the Lamborghini, the helicopter. And so no matter where we are, I think the message is we can inspire others no matter the imposter syndrome, right? I mean, we all look at Elon Musk and we're like, well, he's freaking sending people in spaceships to Mars. We're just here flipping ugly houses. And other people are like still in their corporate job looking to you like, wow, they were able to replace their income. They got 7 rentals in 6 months last year. And I don't know how to get out of this job that I've got a 1-hour commute each way. And I don't have time to spend with my kids. And I can't go to Disney World tomorrow if I wanted to, because I got to put in a 2-week notice for my vacation or whatever the rules are. So I think just being grateful and understanding where we are, as difficult as that is, because we always want more. And there's always someone who has a flashier car, flashier house. They do more deals in less time, So we've learned a lot. I've learned a lot here on this conversation, even though I did know, a little bit about you from when we met. Is there anything I forgot to ask or anything you'd like to add on? I know we're kind of at the end of the hour and I just want to be respectful of your time.
We're just incredibly grateful. I mean, at the end of the day, the Richmond, Virginia market has been incredibly kind to us, has been incredibly welcoming to us. The number of people with a far greater amount of experience, wealth, knowledge, everything have just, once they've seen someone trying to make it happen, they've really embraced us. And so that's something that I just can't even begin to tell you how grateful I am. I don't even want to begin to try and name names because we would need another hour-long segment of, whose name and why. And then folks like yourself, like we're incredibly grateful just for the chance to be able to network at a level that introduces ourselves to a subject matter expert in time and efficiency, to a carrot camp like scenario. And so we've actually made that a major priority in our life to continue to participate in things like that, because to whatever level we can, we want to be that person for someone else too. And we're finding that kind of now-ish in the last 3 or 4 months, people are regularly coming to us and saying like, hey, how would I work out this deal? Or how would I do this? Or people that I thought didn't even know our name were like, hey,
they're paying attention.
My house just burnt down. What do I do next?
Yeah. You'd be surprised.
I don't know, but I know who to get you in touch with. Right. Exactly. So like it's enough experience to where someone's coming to you and saying, hey, what do you think my next move is here? And that's an incredibly humbling thing, but we're also incredibly incredibly grateful that the market has embraced us to the point that we can be that for someone else now. And we're looking forward to continuing to be that for a lot more people in the future.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, it was awesome having you both on here. If someone wants to connect more, or the famous pick your brain line, or watch a YouTube video, or follow your, add to your TikTok followers and subscribers as you continue to grow and put out content, where's the best place to send them over to? I mean, I know the website, but if you want to share everything, I can.
Yeah. So on TikTok, we are at New Investors. Okay. So we're going to make a play on our last name, right? So we're at New Investors on TikTok.
But you're not new anymore. Like
I know, right? So it kind of works out. We'll be New Investors forever. So one of the best things you can do is ask us a question on TikTok, and then we can make a video in response to your question.
Cool.
Because if you're asking that question, then odds are someone else out there is asking that question too. So we want to make sure that gets answered. Besides that, you can hit us up on Instagram. I'm at the Adam New. You are at Amanda M. New, I think.
Amanda M. New.
So either way, Facebook, you can reach out to us. We're an open book. So if you've got questions or anything like that, especially if you're local to Richmond, Virginia, I hate to say I'm probably not going to be a mentor for anybody out in California. But if you're local to Richmond, Virginia, and you're looking to do deals, or you're looking to get started and kind of wondering your next steps, we're happy to have a conversation with you.
Yep. Anything we can do, point you to resources, point you to other people in a market. We're happy to do it. So even if you're not local to Virginia, let us know, because I think one of the greatest blessings we've seen is not just Richmond and networking within Richmond, but because of things like Carrot Camp, or because of, large mastermind groups and things like that, we've been able to meet all sorts of people just like yourself all over the country. And we can always point you in the direction of who we think would be a great fit for what you're trying to accomplish. Keep, let us know if there's anything we can do to help, because it's time to start paying it forward. And I think that's what we're getting really excited about.
Awesome. Well, thank you both once again. I will link all that up in the show notes, and hopefully we can send a bunch of people your way so you can continue to pay it forward and spread the good information around. But I really enjoyed catching up here. And speaking of catching up, we should also do another Carrot catch-up call, because that was
we absolutely need to. Absolutely. And we need to officially lock down when the next Carrot Camp is, because I think it's supposed to be coming up in May, and I think there's some people that need to go.
Yeah,
AKA
that'd be fun. Yeah, I wouldn't mind making that an annual thing. Just get away, hang out with familiar faces and some new people, and just kind of continue to grow, because a lot happens. I mean, a year is plenty of time to learn something, take action, get feedback, and then, okay, new regulations, new laws, what do we need to pay attention to? What's coming up around the corner? Maybe software tips that people recommend. So yeah, hint, it might be time to sign up for that.
There you go.
Well, hey, we'll talk soon. We'll be in touch, and thank you once again for your time.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Appreciate you.
Hey everybody, Chris Bello here. Thank you so much for listening and for being a fan of the show / YouTube channel. I wanted to invite you real quick to go to chrisbello.com/free to get my latest free download. Right now, it's a cool scorecard tracker. If you've seen on my stories, I use this thing myself. I created it a couple of years ago. I can track how many times I meditate, how many pages I read a day. Really cool stuff. Get very granular so that it's not a guessing game. I can actively track and see what's working, which levers are creating the results in my life that I desire. So again, go to chrisbello.com/free to snag a download of that. I've got some really cool free trainings coming up for you on living a life by design. I want to make sure that you don't miss it. So if you have any questions or anything, let me know. And I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode.